After many years, I've finally seen it. And you guys, it was worth every bit of the hype. I am speaking of The Haunting of Hill House, directed, written by Mike Flanagan. Yes, based loosely off of a book by, what's the author's name? Shirley Jackson. It was a 1959 novel. They did make a movie about it, and then they did the remake with Catherine Zeta-Jones in it. This one, it's the loosest adaptation, but I feel like it is the richest. It is the best one because the episodic nature of this show really allows you to just kind of marinate in the characters. I can't think of any other way to describe it, but this is where I think Flanagan really shines. To me, his most powerful work is episodic series shows because he uses that time to just really dig down deep and get to know the characters. And you just feel like they're almost part of your family. I mean, you're just hanging with them. You really get to know them. Time constraints of a movie don't necessarily allow you to do that as effectively as what he can do in his series shows. Now, the very first one of his that I watched was Midnight Mass, and I love that show so much. I do think I probably still like it more than this one, but it only comes down to certain personal things. Not that Midnight Mass is better or this one is better. To me, they're both just freaking fantastic. But I think I like the setting of Midnight Mass and also the subject matter a little bit more. But this is so freaking good, you guys. I'm so impressed with Mike Flanagan. I've mentioned before that he's becoming one of my favorite directors. Anything his name is attached to, I'm almost immediately going to want to see it for sure. For those who haven't yet seen The Haunting of Hill House, it's available on Netflix, as is The Haunting of Bly Manor and Midnight Mass. And I think he did one other thing called the Midnight Something Club, which I haven't seen that yet, actually. And I haven't seen Bly Manor either. I will be watching it. I do have the DVD of both of those now. So it's basically about this family that was torn apart by tragic, violent events that occurred like 20 years before. You are shown these things that happen in the first episode, and the entire rest of the series is basically the story of what happened. And there's a lot of flashbacks from present day to back when they were in this big, huge mansion house, whatever, Hill House, that the character of Hugh and his wife have bought so that they can renovate it and flip it. So they're going to spend this summer there working on that, but there's stuff about the house. And it starts to affect the various family members, specifically the wife, played by Carla Gugino. She starts to see things and her mind is playing tricks on her. And it's just this thing that happens over the course of several weeks. It starts to fracture the family. I don't want to get too deeply into the specifics of the story because I think this is best appreciated going into it as blind as possible. Obviously, the title lets you know that this is about a haunting, which means ghosts are involved. But I don't want to tell you much more than that. And also the story of this family that's been torn apart by this terrible history of grief and tragedy. So I'm going to try to skate around certain specifics of the story. I want to start off with one of the things that I think was really, really great about this, and that was the casting. All of the casting was excellent. Because this is something that goes back and forth between present day and decades before, you are seeing the older versions of the characters and the younger versions of the characters. Now, Henry Thomas plays the younger version of Hugh, who is the husband, and Timothy Hutton plays his older version. Now, when I started watching this, I made a comment to my cousin kind of complaining about, why didn't they just age Henry Thomas and have him play himself as the older version? But you know, as the story went on, I started to see Timothy Hutton in Henry Thomas and Henry Thomas in Timothy Hutton. And the same thing for the different adult and child characters. I'll give you an example. McKenna Grace plays the character of Theo, And Kate Siegel, Mike Flanagan's wife, plays the adult version of her. And I could see how they favored each other. All of the adult and child actors, I thought, were just so well cast. And the acting, obviously, across the board, so good. Mike Flanagan has this wonderful way of bringing out such genuine emotion in his actors. And it just kind of reaches across the screen into your heart and just like, grabs you. Well, it does for me anyway. I don't think I'm alone in that sentiment. Some other things that I liked about this were the ways that certain scenes were filmed. Scene transitions were pretty creative and interesting. How he would seamlessly blend past and present day with the same sort of action being carried out by a character in a scene. Let's say opening a door, a character's opening a door, and then it will do a time jump and the same character is opening a door or closing a door or whatever. I just thought that was done very well. Episode 6 is the first time that I noticed this particular technique. It's not like it's a new technique or anything, but what I mean is there is an episode that takes place largely in a funeral home. It's episode 6. And it took me a little bit to realize that there were multiple times where there were these long stretches of one take sort of shots. Very well done. And I was captivated that entire, not that I wasn't captivated for the other episodes, but that particular episode I thought was just, wow. It really grabbed me because of how the events were playing out in real time. Yes, there were moments where there were cuts and you could tell, but for the most part, much of it was just one take sort of situations. I also like how he gives us the story bit by bit, and by the time the show is done, everything is revealed, everything is resolved to the extent that it can be resolved. And I like this sort of feeding you little tiny pieces at a time. This is not anything unique to Flanagan, but I really think he's just a master at this. We will see something happen, but we don't really get the full picture until additional context is revealed later. And so I feel like that really rewards our patience and our attention to what we are watching. Just very, very effective storytelling. He is so good at this, you guys. Have I said enough how much I like Mike Flanagan's work? Each episode, and there are 10, initially focuses primarily on one character at a time. There are 3 sisters, 2 brothers, the husband, and the wife. And so you have about 7-ish episodes that are focusing primarily on each character. Yes, there will be some sort of crossover focus with another character, but for the most part, the first several episodes are primarily focused on, okay, here's Shirley, here's Hugh, here's Luke, here's Theo. And that really helps us get to know each of these characters so well. I was feeling so familiar with them that I found myself getting super irritated at some of them, like how you might get irritated with a sibling. That's how much time you're spending with these people. No, I'm teasing, but I think you know what I mean. You just get to know these characters and you want to spend all of this time with them. I could have spent multiple more episodes with them, but I still think this show was paced perfectly. There were other touching moments, for example, where the character of Hugh is coming into a room where all of his adult children are, and it's been a while since he's seen them. And when he's looking upon them, he's seeing them initially as just little, like when they were children, when they were very young. And I thought that was a touching and effective way to communicate how it feels as a parent when you're looking at your kids and your mind just flashes on when they were a child. And it just, I don't know, y'all. Any parent knows exactly what I'm talking about, especially if your children are older now. The writing and dialogue. I know that this is loosely based on a book that's already been written, but Mike Flanagan did write this, and his use of dialogue is so captivating and effective. I remember specifically mentioning in my review for Midnight Mass, which I did a few years back when it first came out, that I could just sit and listen to these people carry on a conversation. They would have these conversations about theology and faith and redemption and forgiveness and all of that stuff. And it was just so well done. And not all dialogue-driven stories or movies or shows can do that, but Flanagan really can. He has this way of making the conversations feel genuinely real and grounded in how people actually talk to one another when they are under strain or they're angry or emotional or whatever. And woven throughout this story is such a rich tapestry of themes that most of us can identify with, such as parenthood. All of us can identify with death, grief, love, sacrifice, struggles. Hill House layers these themes in such a way that they are so identifiable and relatable, and they don't feel heavy-handed. And at no moment do you feel like you're being preached to or lectured to or whatever. To me, that's an indicator of a writer who just kind of sits back and let the themes drive the story, and perfection, y'all. Just perfection. I also liked how he blends this supernatural element with things that are very relatable. There is, I think maybe in the very last episode, there's a line or multiple lines of dialogue talking about what ghosts are. And it's not just referring to the ghosts in this story, but how that ghosts are our secrets, our regrets, our failings. They travel with us. They haunt us. And I thought it was just a great piece of writing, that particular. There were so many great pieces of writing in here, you guys. But it just, to me, that speaks to what the show is about. Because not only is it about this actual supernatural haunting that is happening to the family and what it's doing to all of the characters, but buried within that are also the ghosts. Not the spectral ghosts, but the ghosts of their past, these things that are just hanging on to them, that are dragging them down, their failings and where they've stumbled in life and the problems that they have being able to be honest with each other about their past and about their mistakes, things like that. There was also another line in here that, this came out in 2018, I think. So this was before the world ended in 2019/2020. But there's a line that says, "Fear is the relinquishment of logic." And that was the first thing that I thought of, was just like the absolute and utter hysteria that surrounded what went on in the 2020s with basically just the reaction to a virus with a nearly 100% survival rate. That's what my mind flashed on. And it's true, though. When people are afraid, they stop thinking logically. They stop analyzing a situation with rational thought process, and they just react. It's just this primal reaction. And unfortunately, people can be taken advantage of when they're in that state. But yeah. Another thing that's great about this story is just the family dynamic, the strain between the siblings and also between the siblings and their father. It feels earned and specific. And each personality is distinct without feeling like they're a caricature. Some of the siblings I like more than others. There's the character of Shirley, who just annoyed the absolute tar out of me. She was so hardline and freaking uppity. But there was a reason she was this way. I'm not complaining about her because she was written very well. They all were. I think it speaks to how well written her character is that she got under my skin as much as she did. And it also reflected this real family dysfunction that they were all dealing with. So yeah, not a complaint, just, couldn't stand her character many times. She was just super annoying. But Flanagan really has a gift for giving us moments that are poignant and bittersweet, deeply moving. There were multiple times that I really felt a strong tug. Oof, got a little teary-eyed. And it's interesting because the horror of this, and there are a lot of horror elements to it, the horror of this, I think, is more effective because of these. He's just so good at being able to blend these two elements together. And that's why I think his stuff is so appreciated by audiences. If I have any issues with this, they are extremely minor. There were only two, I think, that I wrote down that stood out to me as maybe not being as strong as other moments, or where I felt like there was a continuity issue. There's one moment where Kate Siegel's character is, and she's a great actress, but there's a moment where she is just laying it all out there to one of her sisters. And it's a very emotional scene, or it's supposed to be a very emotional scene. And it does explain a lot about something that she was going through in a previous episode. And what she was saying made sense. I don't have an issue at all with the writing in that scene. This is not that. It has to do with her acting. For some reason, her acting in that scene felt performative. It felt like she was acting. It didn't feel like she was being this way. You know what I mean? Like, it just, for some reason, her performance in that scene didn't hit me as strongly as I wanted it to, or as strongly as her performance in other scenes had hit me. I really liked her character in here because she was pretty interesting and complex. And you find out why, obviously. But yeah, that moment, for some reason, it just didn't feel as, I don't know, genuine as her acting throughout had felt. And then there's another moment where they're referencing one of the characters, and he's got a strained marital situation. He's separated from his wife. You either get the very strong sense that, or it is specifically stated that he's been kicked out of the house. But then later in another episode, it references that he left. It's a small detail. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. It might also just be maybe what was going on in the moment and mind games were being played. Because I can't remember exactly what was going on in that scene. But I know there are a lot of mind games that were going on with the different characters in certain situations. So minor issues. At its core, The Haunting of Hill House is about how families can carry damage throughout the years, and how our houses, real houses or metaphorical houses, they hold the weight of everything that we couldn't resolve. They are our ghosts. There are houses and there are ghosts. The ghosts in the houses. As I've already mentioned, the ability that Flanagan has to weave horror and humanity together so effectively. Flanagan, I think, is just one of the best when it comes to this, if not the best. So yes, this is a high recommend from me. I have a feeling most of you guys have probably already seen this because I remember it being a big deal when it came out. And a lot of people were talking about it. A lot of people saw it. I started watching it years back. The only thing I remembered was Henry Thomas, a big house, and one of the characters was gay. But I got the character who was gay mixed up. I thought it was somebody else. That's all I remembered. I don't even remember if I got through the entire first episode or if I just stopped and I was going to go back to it and then I got distracted, because it is kind of hard to dedicate time to watching series shows, but boy, this one was worth it. I started watching it with some family members last weekend and finished it up last night. So let's see, we started it Saturday night, I think, and I finished it up Friday. So I watched it in less than a week. Each episode is about an hour or so. The final episode might be the longest, maybe like an hour and 15. So yeah, if you haven't watched this and you like horror, please check it out. I just can't recommend it highly enough. Anyway, that's all I have to say for now about The Haunting of Hill House. As I mentioned earlier, it's currently on Netflix. So go watch it if you haven't already, or rewatch it. All right, you guys, that's it for now. Adios.